It's one of the most well-known stories around, one that's been around for 40 years. A story that everyone seems to know, but has never been fully told in one place. That Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually 2 different games. Or, well, it's actually 3, 4, maybe even more. Stay here for the complete story of Super Mario Bros. 2, the real one.
Super Mario Bros. 2はさすがディスクで面白い。下手くそ。
June 3rd, 1986. On that day, the most anticipated video game of the year finally arrived, Super Mario Bros. 2. The game looked very similar to the original and was brutally difficult in comparison. The game came about during a time of change for Nintendo in Japan and the beginning of its efforts in America, all of which shaped what the game became, with its effects still reverberating throughout the universe today. That journey began on September 13th, 1985, the debut of the first Super Mario Bros. Game, a game that its designer, Shigeru Miyamoto, referred to as an athletic game, taking the concept of a field athletic course, which experienced a boom in the late 70s and early 80s Japan. An athletic was a large park where people of all ages tried their best to maneuver through moving platforms and high bridges suspended over water. The popularity of these athletics went beyond video games. Not long after Super Mario Bros., the TV series Takeshi's Castle joined in on the fun. Super Mario Bros. Became the best-selling game in Japanese history in a very short time. The game sold out frequently and drove sales of family computer hardware to the point where those were often sold out. Some stores shrewdly bundled Super Mario Bros. With failed products, like the family computer robot, which people were happy to take just to get Super Mario. A strategy guide for the game was the best-selling book in all of Japan in 1985. As well, Super Mario Bros. Had been designed as a grand finale to the cartridge format. In 1985, the largest possible cartridge was 320 kilobits, 40 kilobytes in the new math, which Super Mario 1 filled up completely. Having reached the technical limits of the medium at the time, Nintendo developed a new product, the Disk System, an add-on device that used floppy disks, allowing for games 3 to 4 times the size of a cartridge, with enhancements that included more channels of sound and saving game progress. The discs were also cheaper, 2,500 yen for a new game, or rewriting to an existing disc card for 500 yen. Blank discs were 2,000 yen. That arrived on February 21st, 1986, along with The Legend of Zelda. From this day forward, Nintendo released all their games solely on discs. At the same time, the family computer went to America as the Nintendo Entertainment System. The rollout followed the arcade VS system, coin-operated cabinets that were basically a family computer, or NES, inside. Games could be changed as easily as a game cartridge at home. All of them were Nintendo's home games from 1983, 84, and 85. The VS system served as a Trojan horse, bringing NES games to Americans before the NES itself ever existed. It showed that these games were popular and could sell very well in a home format. With the red-hot success of Super Mario Bros. In Japan and growing interest in America, it was an easy decision to bring the game to the VS system. Though all of the VS games were based on home games, the VS versions often had more detailed animations or extra levels. Being coin-operated machines and relying on arcade economics, VS games were also more difficult. That required Super Mario 1 to go through a slight redesign. Shigeru Miyamoto had his hands full with Zelda, so the job was delegated to his right-hand man, Takashi Tezuka, who often doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. VS Super Mario Bros. Had levels that were slightly altered and in a different order. Power-ups were relocated, some 1-ups were removed, others could only be unlocked by gathering a set number of coins beforehand. The timer was shortened for many levels, and some had more hazards than before. Operators could make the game even more difficult, with fewer lives, faster timers, or requiring more than 100 coins for a 1-up. But in addition to that, 6 new levels were created, all of them more challenging than what was seen on the NES. The new layouts had longer jumps, more enemies, demanded precise timing, and could not be completed without discovering hidden blocks or cooperation from the Koopas. VS Super Mario Bros. Became a very popular arcade game after showing up on the scene in early 1986. Over 20,000 cabinets were eventually in circulation. These helped drive sales of the NES in its early years, as kids would play the game in arcades, then learn that you could have the same game at home on the NES. And yes, it is called the VS system, not Versus. The intent was to have the original name of the NES, the Advanced Video System, align with an arcade video system that shared the same games. Back in Japan, Mario Mania knew no bounds. There was immense pressure to follow up with a new Mario as fast as possible. Players demanded a stronger challenge. Other family computer games of the time were much more difficult. Spelunker, as one example, became legendary because of how insanely difficult the game was. It made a hero out of the character because in that frustration came the immense satisfaction of finally solving the challenges in each level. The 6 new levels made by Takashi Tezuka were more difficult. They had the potential for a new, full game. He continued making more as Shigeru Miyamoto checked in every now and then. The situation forced development to stay tied very closely to Super Mario 1. This had positives and negatives. The upside was that a new game could be finished rather quickly. The graphics, sound, mechanics, and enemies all carried over instantly, saving valuable time. However, with redesigned levels of an existing game, it didn't look or feel very original. To balance this, some changes were made. The foreground and background graphics were changed slightly. The ground has more detail and looks more like rock formations. Grassy platforms have fringes. Clouds have eyes, as do trees, which have an all-new design. Mushrooms also share a similar redesign, and Mario has more animation when coming out of pipes in water. It was just enough to separate Super Mario 1 from what was becoming Super Mario 2. All of the enemies return unchanged. One new enemy made an appearance, the red piranha plant. Unlike the green variety, it will not go into hiding if Mario is standing next to a pipe. Some major changes to gameplay and the rules of Super Mario were made. These include the addition of poison mushrooms. Touching one is just like touching an enemy. Strong winds blow Mario backwards and forwards, making jumps much more difficult. Some springs are super powered. Jumping on one will send Mario off the screen, giving the player no idea where he will land. There are more warp zones, 11 in all of which only go to one new world. And some of them send you backwards. In Super Mario 1, there were bugs that caused strange worlds, discoverable if the game were hot swapped with tennis. Nintendo would never advise such a thing, but embraced the idea of extra hidden levels in Super Mario 2 by adding World 9 and Worlds A, B, C, and D that were extra hard. The only way to access World 9 was to clear the first 8 worlds without using a warp zone. Worlds A, B, C, and D were only unlocked after finishing the game 8 times. Not only that, the player had to hold A and start on the title screen, which was a secret you had to somehow discover by yourself. Super Mario 2 would be a single-player game, with the choice of Mario or Luigi throughout. Playing as Mario wasn't any different. He ran and jumped just as he always had. But Luigi was very different. His jumps were higher, giving an assist for those hard-to-reach areas. There was a trade-off to this benefit as Luigi was a little bit more difficult to control. His landings and turns were slippy, which meant that Luigi's game wasn't in easy mode, just very different. As for the story of the game, after Mario defeated Bowser and rescued Princess Toadstool of the Mushroom Kingdom, the King of the Koopa shows up and kidnaps her again. And this time, to make sure Mario can't rescue her, he set off even more dangerous traps. That's it! The exact same story! What more needs to be said? Fans love the game for the athletic challenges, not its storytelling anyway. Super Mario Bros. 2 was completed in only a few months and positioned to be the big game for the summer of 1986. TV commercials hit the airwaves with Tokoro George and Konomi Mashita in the style of other Disk System game commercials from that year. They warned that this game was hard and that maybe it was okay to lose your cool over how tough it was every now and then. A second spot ran that simply highlighted some of the craziest stages in the game. On June 3rd, thousands of new discs went out to retailers and into homes across Japan. Super Mario Bros. 2 debuted at number 1 on Famimaga's sales charts, having presence on the chart for the rest of the year. Throughout the summer, Famimaga published detailed maps of every level. Different tactics were discussed, and readers submitted their own discoveries. These were eventually compiled into their own strategy guide by the end of the year. A new magazine also arrived on the scene, Famicom Tsushin, later known as Famitsu, adding to the existing coverage in its earliest issues, coming just a few weeks after Super Mario 2. There wasn't a 40-point score system like we know today in Famitsu just yet, but the staff took an objective look at the game, discussing the changes made from Super Mario 1 and being critical of many graphical similarities, while expressing hope that if there were someday a Super Mario 3, the graphics get an all-new look. The higher difficulty was embraced, saying that fans of the game will love these new levels, but that with things like poison mushrooms, the game will be too frustrating for those who don't read the manual first. When it was all said and done, Super Mario Bros. 2 on the disk system was a success. The game racked up lifetime sales of about 2.5 million units, 1.36 million as packaged cards, and the rest as disc rewrites. The best-selling disk system game ever. The numbers for Super Mario Bros. 2 were only about 1/3 of the original, but the game had a very long tail, one that would wrap all the way around the world for years to come, and change the timeline of the Super Mario series forever. With the massive success of Super Mario Bros., it wasn't long at all until all kinds of tangential products tried to cash in on the wave. Along with the usual fare, stickers, toys, and candy, Nintendo would soon find itself dabbling in mass media. The Fuji Sankei Group, known today as Fuji Media Holdings, was eager to tie themselves to Nintendo's rising star, making very interesting offers to utilize Mario and his games. The conglomerate controlled many outlets, including Fuji Television, Pony Canyon Records, Sankei Shimbun newspapers, and a radio network with Nippon Broadcasting. The first opportunity involved the most popular radio program in Japan, All Night Nippon. Audio-only programming might not seem like a good fit for video games, but the willingness to try anything once and a high level of enthusiasm from those in the business made some interesting things happen. In early 1986, All Night Nippon held submissions to write lyrics for the Super Mario Overworld theme. The winning entry became a song called Go Go Mario, which then received airplay on the radio program. The song backed the A-side, Mario's Great Adventure, released as a 45 single in March 1986, and then included on a VHS cassette of the same name, produced by Pony Canyon. The home video release included strategies for Super Mario Bros. And some funny commentary from the famous plumber himself, in addition to the Go Go Mario song. All Night Nippon wasn't finished with gaming just yet. Hosts of the program, which rotated nightly, often tried their hands at different video games while live on the air. It usually didn't go well. The most popular of these segments was on Kyoko Koizumi's Wednesday program. She often invited friends to come and play together. One regular was the founder of Game Freak and future creator of Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri. Listeners would often call in and talk about their struggles and frustrations. Super Mario 1 and 2 were featured, as were other games that were new in 1986. That year, All Night Nippon was preparing a year-long celebration of the 20th anniversary of the show. Of the many things that commemorated the event was a new video game crossover, All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros., a game that featured the hosts of the program, both past and present, in the world of Super Mario. Bowser had invaded the Viva Kingdom and kidnapped all the hosts along with the princess, leaving it up to Mario and Luigi to save the day once again. The only way to get the game was to enter a lottery and hope that you became a lucky winner.
パーソナリティが登場するスーパーマリオのですね、このディスクができたと。こ このディスクが欲しいやつはですね、往復はがきに住所、氏名、年齢、電話番号とオールナイトニッポン。返信はがきが届き次第、現金書き留めで2600円とお口400円送っていただきたい。これは12月20日よりですね。
Only 2,000 disc cards were sold. Tens of thousands of entrants lost the drawing, and with such strong demand, 1,000 more copies of the game were sold in early 1987. All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. Was very similar to the arcade VS version, reusing many levels from Super Mario 1, with some from 2 mixed in, though the entire game used Mario 2 graphic stylings, and the one-player mode with Standard Mario or High-Jumping Luigi. World 9 was removed, but A, B, C, and D remained. The difficulty was toned down just a bit. The stages are also set at night. Well, most of them, to fit the theme of the overnight radio program. Also seen in the background are radio microphones and the Fuji logo. The hosts of All Night Nippon are seen at the end of each world after having been rescued, including Beat Takeshi, Kyoko Koizumi, Tunnels, and Goro Itoi, who was an original host in 1967 and passed away only 2 years before. Sun Plaza Nakano and Tamori are seen in the game replacing Goombas and Piranha Plants, respectively. The promotion was rather small in retrospect, but it forged the bond between Nintendo and Fuji, who were moving this partnership to the next level. In July 1986, Fuji Television announced a special event to be held the next summer, Yume Kojo. In English, Dream Machine. The concept began a few years earlier, when Fuji were denied admission to the 1985 World Expo in Tsukuba, Japan. Only the giants of industry, like Sony, Toyota, and Mitsubishi, were allowed to hold exhibits in the expo. Fuji, being a media company, was not. Though spurned, the company decided to make their own version of a World Expo that featured the software side of Japan, as someone could have the very best top-of-the-line hardware, televisions, compact disc players, and computers, but without anything to play on them, are useless. Dream Machine did not promote Fuji TV programs. Instead, unique pavilions were created by artists and engineers from a wide spectrum of disciplines. These featured hologram projection, video phones, computer matchmaking, remote control car racing, and movies that played out across dozens of screens at once. Live concerts were performed daily by Pony Canyon artists. Celebrities had meet and greets. Dignitaries visited from around the world, and all of the goings-on were reported live on Fuji TV every day. The event was hailed as a communication carnival that ran for 44 days in 2 locations, Tokyo and Osaka. Dream Machine was massive in size and scale, but beyond this, people and places were adopting the Yume Kojo moniker in celebration of the upcoming festival. There was Yume Kojo the band, Yume Kojo the fashion designer, Yume Kojo the nightclub. There wasn't Yume Kojo the flamethrower, but had there been, nobody would have been surprised. And with that came Yume Kojo the video game, a collaboration between Fuji TV and Nintendo, featuring the characters created to promote Dream Machine. The main character was Imogene. He was a young boy dressed like a genie, with baggy pants, pointy shoes, a vest, and a turban. The design was created by Motomu Sugiyama, the winner of a design contest within Fuji. The motif was inspired by the official theme song of Dream Machine, Arabian Nights, performed by Yume Kojo, the band. Imogene had a girlfriend, Lena, as well as parents and a little brother and sister, Piki and Poki, and a pet monkey, Rusa. Together, they were known as the Imogene family. Unknown to Fuji was that potential ideas for this game were already in the works. A recent newcomer to the company, Kensuke Tanabe, had come up with a demo for a new Mario game. In it, 2 players could interact simultaneously. Mario and Luigi worked cooperatively through vertically scrolling levels and could pick up, carry, and throw objects on the screen. Shigeru Miyamoto reviewed the work and was dissatisfied with what he saw. It didn't look or play like Mario, wasn't very fun, and didn't have enough to it for a full game. He made some suggestions to Tanabe, such as using horizontal levels and bringing the core gameplay closer to what Mario was known for. When Fuji approached Nintendo, Shigeru Miyamoto delegated the work to Kensuke Tanabe, who took his unfinished concept and transformed it into an all-new world for these characters. Levels were vertical and horizontal. Each one was bright and colorful. two-tone shading was done in many areas, giving more detail to the foreground that stands against the mostly blue or black backgrounds. The characters could pick up enemies and objects and throw them. Most enemies are just walking around, while objects are often planted in the ground. Pulling up grass usually reveals a vegetable, but there could be other items as well. Throwing vegetables at bad guys to knock them out and clear the way became the main gameplay mechanic. In a pinch, other enemies would also work. Jumping on them, Mario style, won't do anything, but you do get a nice ride. There were power-ups, hearts which added to the life meter that had 4 hits maximum. To access them, a magic lamp has to be pulled out of the ground. Throwing it down reveals a door to a hidden area, where sometimes hearts can be discovered. They aren't always easy to find, and the locations can be quite mysterious. Grass pulled up in this area reveals coins that are used at the end of each level on the bonus chance slot machine, which can earn extra lives. In a similar vein to the Mario game and Luigi game of Super Mario Bros. 2, there were 4 playable characters from the family: Imogene, Mama, Papa, and Lena. Imogene had standard jumping ability and could pull up vegetables at a normal speed. Mama had higher, longer jumps and pulled vegetables a little bit slower than Imogene. Papa was the strongest, pulling up vegetables the fastest. However, his jumps were very short. Lena could float for a few seconds with each jump. She also pulls up vegetables the slowest of the 4. Each could also get a little bit of extra height by holding down on the control pad, making the characters flash, enabling jumps 1.5 times higher than usual. The 4 characters gave some variety to the challenges in the game. Lena can easily jump over everything, but Papa might be better at gathering more coins or clearing areas with many enemies. Mama can reach places others can't, and Imogene is the easiest one to control. However, the entire family each had to clear all 20 levels of the game to reach the ending. To highlight this frenzy, non-stop pace, the game was titled Doki Doki Panic. In English, the name is Nonsense. In Japanese, Doki Doki imitates the sound of a beating heart, while panic has a slightly different meaning than it does in English. Not so much fear, but a confusing or overwhelming situation. The words convey the lighthearted chaos that the game brings. On the surface, things looked very similar to other action games, but with the foundation for this game starting as a potential Mario sequel, some very recognizable elements were added in. The coins had a similar appearance to those in the Mushroom Kingdom. The sound effect was right on the money too. POW blocks, seen in Mario Bros. From 1983, appear from time to time. Superstars gave a burst of invincibility that Mario fans understood well. Collecting 5 cherries made each one appear. Then there were also pipes that went underground, though those were designed in the shape of vases. Some had enemies jumping out of them. Others didn't go anywhere at all. And there were warp zones. The Imogene family was seen in Yume Kojo promotional materials, and very much a blank slate otherwise. The story of Doki Doki Panic adds many details to the Imogene family and their world. In a land far away from our own, one that only exists in a book of fairy tales, lies the world of dreams. To maintain harmony, the people of this land built the Dream Machine to ensure that people have only good dreams. One day, a wicked monster, Mamu, invaded this land and stole the Dream Machine. He also reached out of the book the world existed in to kidnap Piki and Poki. Imogene, Mama, Papa, and Lena chased after him. The only way to defeat Mamu was to feed him the one thing he hated: vegetables. In this army of monsters, Heihos are the most common. They move back and forth in many levels. A variant is the Mucho, who shoots bullets from his giant nose. Airborne Heihos are called Tonderia. All of them wear masks, something that was a major part of the Yume Kojo festival. Formerly, these were called Imogenia masks. Based on designs that originated in Italy, these masks captured the feelings of mystery, fashion, and youth. Masks are also found in the game as stackable blocks, exit gates, a living mask who guards keys, only to awaken from a long slumber if one is removed. There were wildlife enemies: porcupines, giant ladybugs, ostriches, and albatrosses. Other birds fly on carpets. There's plant life, giant cactuses that walked around and plants that spit fire. Vines were also in many locations to help get around. Bombs that are sentient are also spread out all over the place. They defy any category. Boss enemies included a giant mouse that throws bombs, a 3-headed snake, and living flame. Then there's this thing, a weird pink dinosaur that spits eggs. This creature is described in the instructions as a boy who thinks he's a girl. a strange design, and an even stranger explanation. The character was named Catherine. It's likely that this name refers to Mitsuko Yorichika, a socialite and media personality in the 1980s who was known on camera by her middle name, Catherine. She also happened to be married to the creator of Yume Kojo, Fuji TV president Haruo Shikanai. She was not loved by all during her time and was often criticized for getting where she was because of her husband. It may have been a playful jab from someone inside Nintendo for being forced to work on a game for another company. With a full game loaded with characters, bright graphics, many challenges, and an interesting mission to complete, composer Koji Kondo stepped in to provide a soundtrack that fit the imagery on screen, creating the right mood throughout. There were different songs for the title screen, character selection, and ending, with a few jingles for finished levels and defeated bosses. The main composition, the overworld theme, presents a jazzy, upbeat ragtime number that's rather playful and complements the action on screen well. Then the underworld theme, something a little darker, somewhat in a Middle Eastern style that reflected the design of the Imagine family and many stages where they go underground, often digging up sand or exploring deep catacombs that contrasted the levels above. The finished product was a fun game with solid mechanics and a whimsical premise. Many action games of the late 80s imitated Mario in many ways, and Doki Doki Panic certainly did that too. But this was an imitation of Mario made by those who had created the template. When the game was completed, it was unveiled at the Fuji TV Studios, like many of the promotions that were announced, leading up to the grand opening of the Communication Carnival. On May 28, 1987, on a giant monitor flanked by Imagineer masks, the world saw Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic for the first time. Doki Doki Panic was released on July 10th, just 8 days before the grand opening of the festival. The gaming media found the new game intriguing, as Nintendo never took a back seat to another company and developed the game on someone else's behalf. Famitsu magazine covered the game throughout the summer of 1987. A multi-page feature detailed the aspects of the game and declared that, as with any game by Nintendo, there's no reason for it not to be fun. And the anything goes attitude of the game presents a new kind of action game with a certain charm to it. There were also direct comparisons to Mario. Enemy placement, pipes, and vines are highlighted as proof that Doki Doki Panic is actually the real Super Mario 3. Doki Doki Panic earned a cross-review score of 31 out of 40. The higher scoring reviewers said that Doki Doki Panic has the same fun as Super Mario Bros. The lower ones opined that playing through the game 4 times is tedious, and that it's just an imitation of Mario. Doki Doki Panic sold moderately well. 350,000 units were moved during the summer of 1987, while Dream Machine was open to the public. Afterwards, the game started to fade away from the public eye. Imagine was never seen or heard from ever again. Kensuke Tanabe's game, however, was far from finished.
It's everything you've dreamed of and worlds more. It's Super Mario 2, only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power.
Back in America, Nintendo was growing in popularity. In the first year of the NES, there were at least 1 million control decks under or on top of the TV. The number was growing every day. It was all thanks to a small team led by Howard Phillips, a man worthy of the title Game Master. The best part of his job was reviewing potential NES titles sent from Japan. One day in 1986, Howard was sent a copy of Super Mario Bros. 2. On paper, a game that would sell millions on the title alone. As he began to play, his feeling went from excitement to frustration, then confusion and disappointment. The levels were difficult to clear. Hidden items hurt Mario. It was impossible to know where Mario or Luigi would land in many cases. Sometimes they were totally off-screen. The graphics were almost the same as Super Mario 1 as well. On the surface, an untrained eye couldn't tell which one was which. After a few levels, Howard turned the game off and made a difficult decision. Super Mario Bros. 2 would never be sold in America. Simply, it wasn't fun. There's an old saying in the radio industry, nobody hears the bad song you don't play. As far as the NES user base knew, Super Mario Bros. 2 didn't exist, and that was fine. When Nintendo of America relayed back to Japan that Super Mario Bros. 2 was a no-go, the Home Office gave them a copy of Doki Doki Panic. The response from Howard and his team was much more positive this time around. The game was fun. The game was bright. It had secrets that were rewarding to discover. It was a much better fit for the NES than Super Mario Bros. 2. Nintendo of America wanted to move forward with the game, though major changes were in order. After some coordination with Nintendo in Japan, Doki Doki Panic was transformed into the Mario game it was always intended to be. And for Americans, the real Super Mario 2. First, the Imogene family was out, replaced with Mario, Luigi, the Mushroom Retainer, rechristened as Toad, and the Princess. The abilities of the four matched those in Doki Doki Panic. Imogene became Mario, Mama, Luigi, Papa turned into Toad, Lena was the Princess. Serendipitously, Luigi's higher jumps and slippy controls from Super Mario 2 in Japan carried over, and Luigi actually jumps a little bit higher than Mama. The redesigned characters were a major improvement from Super Mario 1. Luigi was taller and thinner. Mario's clothes were no longer brown. The angle they walked at was a bit more three-dimensional. Mario and company also started in a super state and shrank when hit. Getting a power-up again made them grow back to super size. In Doki Doki Panic, the characters were always the same size regardless. And with that power-up ability came many other changes. Hearts became mushrooms. One-ups too, which were just heads in Doki Doki Panic. Imogenia mask blocks became mushrooms too. Koopa shells also found their way into the game. The B-dash was added. The Imogene family could not run. The B button did nothing in this regard. Graphics were altered, sometimes subtly, but most changes are apparent. The speed of waterfalls seen in many levels is slowed down. Phanto was given a scarier-looking face. Objects and enemies had more frames of animation. Grass that was black in Doki Doki Panic is now red and in motion. Vines wave in the wind. Bombs have fuses burning down. Cherries sway, and some clouds are animated. Magic lamps became flasks filled with bubbling potions. The areas that these doors lead to now have a proper name: subspace. The correct spelling of bomb for explosions has been fixed. The exit gates are now bird heads when they were once Imogenia masks. The bonus chance slot machine is given a nice makeover. Enemies for the new Super Mario Bros. 2 were given names that fit well in English. Hey-hos are now Shy Guys. Muchos, Sniffits. Tonderias, Bezos. Cactuses, formerly called Sambos, became Pokies. The living bombs were just called Bob in Japanese, but now also use their last name, Omb. A new boss was created to add some variety. Claw Grip, a giant enemy crab that picks up rocks and throws them. The main villain, Mamu, which means demonic dream in Japanese, is simply called Wart. Catherine was the only name in Doki Doki Panic that was already Americanized. He was changed into Birdo. The part about being a boy who thinks he's a girl, strangely, remained. Other changes happened due to technical limitations. Doki Doki Panic was a disk system game and could easily save progress. The NES required a battery inside the cartridge for saves. It was easy enough to do, but the lower costs was not included. Since the game would reset every time the power turned off, Super Mario 2 required only one run of the 20 levels, with any character combination. New music tracks include the title screen, which reworks the underwater theme from Super Mario 1, Invincibility, and Subspace, which also borrow from the original. The rest of the music sounds a bit different, sometimes slower, often fuller, thanks to DPCM drum samples. The title screen to Doki Doki Panic wasn't discarded, however, just moved to the ending credits. These changes transformed Doki Doki Panic into a much better, balanced game. To complete the change into Super Mario Bros. 2, the story was rewritten, putting Mario front and center. One evening, Mario had a strange dream. He dreamt of a long, long stairway leading up to a door. As soon as the door opened, he heard a faint voice saying, "Welcome to Subcon, the land of dreams. We have been cursed by Wart, and we are completely under his evil spell. Please defeat Wart and return Subcon to its natural state. Remember, Wart hates vegetables. Please help us." At the same time this was heard, a bolt of lightning flashed before Mario's eyes. He awoke to find himself sitting up in his bed. To clear his head, Mario talked to Luigi, Toad, and the princess about the strange dream he had. They decided to go to a nearby mountain for a picnic. After arriving, they see a small cave nearby. When they enter this cave, to their great surprise, there's a stairway leading up to a door, exactly like the one Mario saw in his dream. There's another old saying out there: news travels slowly across the ocean. Nintendo of America's games were about 2 years behind those released in Japan. The company didn't mention that much, having the leisure of taking time to decide which games to bring to the NES. Their long-term curated strategy came with a new marketing tool, Nintendo Power, a full-color 100-page magazine covering the hottest breaking news on the NES. The first issue was given away for free to many active NES owners in July 1988. On the cover, proudly, was Super Mario Bros. 2. Inside were 18 full-color pages that detailed the aspects and mechanics of the game, with full maps for the first 2 worlds. For NES fans across America, it made for exciting summer vacation reading and confirmed what the next birthday or Christmas present must be. The follow-up issue continued the coverage with more maps, featuring World 3 and beyond. But the game still had not yet arrived in stores. Super Mario Bros. 2 was an unfortunate victim of bad timing, an event known as the chip shortage. Microchips, including the ones in NES games, were going through a generational cycle, something that happens usually every 4 to 5 years, as the maximum memory size pushes further and further forward. This process puts a strain on manufacturing. Japan and the US had entered a trade agreement to prevent Japanese chip manufacturers from engaging in dumping. The pact forced the prices of Japanese imports to be the same level as American-made chips, through import fees and taxes. To avoid these restrictions, many Japanese manufacturers simply stopped producing for the time being. This affected Nintendo of America in a major way, as they relied on these components. Every NES game was assembled in Kyoto. Even third parties had no control over manufacture. That was handled by the Big N, who also decided how many copies were made. With manufacturing slowed down, there wasn't as many chips to go around, and what was available had to filter through many channels before making it to retail. As well, Nintendo was a victim of its own success. The NES exploded in popularity in 1988. Everybody wanted one. Stores couldn't keep them in stock. Even without these aforementioned issues, supply wasn't keeping up with demand. Another new game that fans just couldn't wait for, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, was soon on the way, adding more fuel to the fire. Super Mario 2 was finally released in October 1988 in very limited quantities. If you were one of the few who got your hands on one in 1988, you either had connections or were extremely lucky. The low number of sales in 1988 was reflected in the Nintendo Power Top 30 charts, where Super Mario Bros. 2 debuted at number 28. After the new year, the chip shortage began to correct itself. In 1989, the game went to number 1 and remained on the charts until December 1994, after which the NES was retired. In that 6-year and change lifespan, Super Mario 2 sold 10 million units, the best-selling NES game ever that wasn't included in the action set. Other publications in 1988 gave coverage to the game. These reviews did not rely on scores or sensationalized ratings. They did have one advantage Nintendo didn't. They could expose the truth about Super Mario Bros. 2 being different games in Japan and America, something Nintendo Power never admitted. Back in Japan, having a different Mario game in America was an open secret. As a general rule, all games sent to America mentioned their Japanese titles in print every time for clarity. It wasn't much more than an afterthought, and the American industry rarely took up more than a single page in a magazine. As far as Japanese gamers were concerned, they really weren't missing out. By October 1988, Super Mario Bros. 3 was ready for release anyway. The older Mario games took a back seat. However, Mario's adventure in Subcon made it back to the shores of Japan on September 14, 1992, as Super Mario USA. There were almost no changes to the game. The manual listed the American names of enemies, and the back of the box was very transparent that Super Mario USA was in fact Doki Doki Panic. It was a smart and easy move to release the game in Japan, as it took almost no effort and provided many gamers in Japan with a new experience. Nintendo no longer supported the disk system, and Doki Doki Panic was long out of print. Reviews of Super Mario USA were negative. Famitsu Magazine only gave a 2-page write-up in 1992, along with a review crew score of 24 out of 40, expressing that the game was 5 years old, wasn't any different than Doki Doki Panic, and when compared to the Mario universe in 1992, throwing vegetables wasn't really Mario's style. In the end, Super Mario USA provided a rare opportunity that this lost game saw the light of day in Japan, eventually. Even though, for those in America, Super Mario Bros. 2 was still hidden away under lock and key.
The Lost Levels, we're talking games!
Play every Mario Brothers made, including the never-seen Lost Levels.
The Lost Levels, let the games begin!
After Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, Nintendo of America admitted in writing that Super Mario Bros. 2 was derived from another game. Why the big cover-up? Why couldn't Americans have this game? What's up with the other game Mario 2 came from? Those were never answered, but Nintendo made things right in 1993 with Super Mario All-Stars, a compilation of classic NES Mario games redone with 16-bit graphics and music in a style similar to Super Mario World. All-Stars included save files, custom controls, and removed many bugs and glitches. And the disk system game that never came to the US, hereafter known as the Lost Levels. With many more Mario games available by 1993, featuring intense challenges like the Star Road, Nintendo of America felt the time was right to bring the Lost Levels out of the vault. Beyond graphics, there were some changes that improved the Lost Levels, namely that World 9 can be enjoyed with more than just one life, using all your built-up reserves. On the disk system, you had only one shot. As well, reaching worlds A, B, C, and D were much easier, requiring only one playthrough, not 8. No cryptic code either. Nintendo Power held a contest to promote the Lost Levels, offering an iron-on patch to anyone who could make it to World 9 and prove it. For anyone out there who still has one, hang on to it. You've earned it. The release in Japan wasn't a revelation. All 4 games were sold there. Instead, it was a celebration of a great series that defined the 8-bit era. The release also coincided with the first theatrical film based on a video game, Super Mario Bros. Starring Bob Hoskins. The promotional campaign in the Land of the Rising Sun treated the compilation like a Hollywood premiere. In Japan, the Satellaview attachment expanded the possibilities of the Super Famicom, allowing for downloadable games via satellite transmission. The games ran on a schedule, just like a TV series. BS Super Mario USA Power Challenge was broadcast in the first half of 1996, featuring 4 chapters based on Super Mario USA. Stages had to be completed under certain time limits or with a high score. Gold Mario statues as a collectible item were also a new addition. Power Challenge featured sound link narration, where voice acting was mixed with gameplay at certain intervals. The narration added atmosphere to the game, with taunting comments from Catherine and Mouser. Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on the Game Boy Color in 1999 included the Lost Levels. However, you had to unlock them by earning 300,000 points in 1985 mode first. Only worlds 1 through 8 were available, and features like the extra red coins and boo races are not available. Considering that the field of view is always in motion, and the levels are nightmarishly hard to begin with, maybe that was a good idea. When Nintendo released the Game Boy Advance in 2001, Mario came along for the launch with Super Mario Advance, a reworked version of Super Mario Bros. 2. The graphics borrow from the All-Stars version, slightly reconfigured for the small screen. There were several new additions and enhancements. Robo Birdo, a version of Birdo that's a robot, is a new boss that replaces one Mouser. The insides of vases have moving platforms, and there are new surprises placed in every level. Extra hearts, new vases, huge jumps, big vegetables, and giant enemies. There were 5 hidden ace coins in every level, and after completing one run-through, a new challenge is unlocked, where Yoshi eggs are hidden in subspace on every level. As well, a scoring system is included, with many opportunities to rack up points and extra lives with ease. Super Mario Advance included a new version of the original Mario Bros. From 1983, which supports up to 4 players at once. The game was the first in a series where other Super NES Mario games were brought to the Game Boy Advance. It's a little fitting that Super Mario Bros. 2 kicked things off, because Nintendo took an older game, added many alterations, and screwed up the timeline of the series, as Super Mario 3, World, and Yoshi's Island were numbered in a way that made no sense. Since 2019, both Super Mario Bros. 2s, The Lost Levels, and USA, are on the Nintendo Classics service, where they will be available for all until the end of eternity. While Super Mario Bros. 2 seems like a one-off in retrospect, there are references in cartoon shows, comic books, and the like that took from Super Mario 2 when it was very new. But in the games themselves, you'll find these characters again and again. In Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario World, Bob-ombs and Pokies appear throughout. As far as enemies go, both are challenging creations, as the time explosions of Bob make trouble, and Pokey, having multiple parts, requires some strategy to get by safely. Bad guys from Subcon also appeared in Yoshi's Island. Shy Guys are everywhere, basically as the main enemy. Bringing them into the fold might explain why Mario had dreamed about Shy Guys in 1988, coping with unresolved childhood trauma. The end-level boss, Birdo, has transitioned from a boss enemy to one of the good guys, becoming a major character in the Mario universe today. The weird pink dinosaur thing is playable in all recent, and many older, Mario Kart and sports games. Birdo is often paired up with Yoshi, which makes sense since they can both make a lot of eggs. Catherine was part of the action in Captain Rainbow, a very weird Japanese-only one-off game that had Nintendo making fun of some of its lesser-known and lesser-used characters. After getting arrested for using the ladies' room, Catherine is sprung from jail by the hero, Nick. Wart, the worst villain of them all, is one character that has scarcely been seen since 1988. Not counting all the re-releases of Super Mario 2, Wart has never appeared in any other games in the series. He makes a cameo in Link's Awakening on the Game Boy and Switch, singing the Frog's Song of Soul, but other than that, nothing. However, in 2026, Wart made a comeback with the rest of his 8-bit gang in the Super Mario Galaxy movie. It's nice to know they made a scene just for him. Since there are two Super Mario Bros. 2s out there, it's interesting to note that both games have spiritual sequels that take the best parts of each and give fans of either one more go at their favorite Mario 2. New Super Luigi U could easily be called The Lost Levels 2. With 82 new courses laid over top of the original Mario U map, the difficulty is turned all the way up. There are tons of enemies in the way, and the timer is shortened for most courses. None of them have a checkpoint flag, and must be done while managing Luigi's slippy controls. Bonus points for coming just 7 months after Mario U, and reusing many of that game's elements, which goes far in recreating that feeling of 1986. And if there is anything that comes close to being Super Mario USA 2, it's Super Mario 3D World, where the band got back together one more time for awesome 4-player fun. Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Princess retain their abilities that help out in different situations. Having all 4 running around like crazy will have your heartbeat in a panic. Sure, it's Mario vs. Bowser, again, but with doors, PAL blocks, cherries, throwing enemies around everywhere, and Sprixies kind of looking like subcons, it's very apparent that the DNA of USA has and will continue to survive. Every Mario game has one defining feature about them, both on screen and in the culture. And for Super Mario Bros. 2, it is the fact that the series timeline was split in half very early on, and over time pulled back together. Whether you learned about the Lost Levels and Doki Doki Panic through All-Stars, non-Nintendo magazines, or years later on the internet, it always comes back to an interesting discussion. Which game was the real Super Mario 2? Honestly, the best answer is they both are. In Japan, Super Mario Bros. 2, sometimes with the tagline "for super players," was meant to follow the original. The 80s were a time of experimentation, and many rules in place today were only starting to form. It really wasn't that out of place. Just look at Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man. or Galaxian and Galaga. Most sequels were hard modes of the original. You just have to wonder what Shigeru Miyamoto would have done if Super Mario 1 wasn't lightning in a bottle that got tangled up in a slightly different arcade version. Then you have Super Mario Bros. 2 in America. Is that not a real Mario game? It has Mario in it. How could it not be? Then factor in that Doki Doki Panic was designed and programmed by the same core team and was good enough to go back to Japan, tells me that it is just as real as the other Mario 2. Oh, but it was different. It was the weird one. Yeah, it was. And again, gaming was a new frontier. Just as rules for what a series should be wasn't solidified, technology was jumping forward. Cartridge sizes were increasing. Good programming made games look better. Why couldn't a sequel to something be different and look better? Just take a look at Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2 that showed up at almost the same time. Of course, in all three cases, the games that made these trilogies went back to the original formula, where, by the start of the 16-bit era, games began to adhere to standards that are still in place today, when a series runs for decades, maintaining a uniform style, in both visuals and gameplay. One that can change a little bit, but is essentially playing the same game over and over again. But I, for one, am happy, in the end, that Nintendo in Japan made a super difficult Mario 1, and Nintendo of America said no thanks to that. It took some time, but both sides of the Pacific were able to experience both games, in different forms, and each one shaped the series in ways where, without them, things just wouldn't be the same. And it leaves behind an interesting legacy, one still talked about 40 years later. And now, with the complete story told, it might just be one that will be remembered for as long as the games themselves are played. Want to learn even more about Yume Kojo? Or the bug in Mario 2 that lets you hear the subspace music anywhere? Then click on these GTV videos. Or just spin the wheel and see where it takes you.